When it comes to the big game, every single play counts. So while it's easy to point fingers at some of the bigger mistakes, it becomes easy to forget that those big mistakes come from a lot of smaller mistakes earlier in the game.
Look at this throw. Almost pulled in.
Usually that's a touchdown when you get out of something like that.
Ooh, hit him right in the face guard.
Every season, players and coaches alike are put on the spot, and they can experience either career-defining successes or failures. But it isn't always the right guy that gets the blame. As a result, there have been quite a few players and coaches who, despite being the main culprit, seem to skate by without catching any flack. Let's take a look back at 10 of the guiltiest parties who do not get nearly enough blame for their Super Bowl loss. First up, the receiving corps for the Kansas City Chiefs during Super Bowl 55, which somehow, someway, seems to have almost mystically slid under the radar when folks break down what went wrong for KC against Tom Brady and the rest of the world champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Fans, media, and analysts alike all seem to follow the same progression. Initially, they cite the Chiefs' injuries and subsequent woes on the offensive line that did admittedly plague Kansas City throughout the game. Then people point to Andy Reid's decision to almost entirely abandon the run game, which, again, is valid. I mean, I understand it's tough when you go down early, but only 17 attempts? Especially when you're having success. And they were! Averaging 6.3 yards a pop is more than enough to help get your offense back into the swing of things, and give that defensive unit a much-needed break. Lastly, some of the Mahomes detractors, a perhaps misguided but growing sect, blame the quarterback for trying to do too much, running around in almost a backyard football sort of style and playing hero ball. But, if you ask me, the pass catchers deserve the most blame for this one. Take this Tyreek Hill drop, for example. Of course, there is a high degree of difficulty involved here, but when the pass literally goes through your fingers and hits you in the face mask, it's hard not to toss some blame your way. And he wasn't the only one plagued with dropsies. The usually reliable Travis Kelce dropped this key third down conversion in the second quarter when the score is still just 7-3. And then, as the icing on the cake, early in the fourth quarter, the Chiefs had a chance to make it a two-score game. Mahomes was being pressured, but he worked his magic and delivered one of the craziest passes you'll ever see downfield, only for Darrell Williams to watch it bounce off his hands in the end zone. It felt like every time that Mahomes was trying to make some magic happen, despite being under massive duress, one of his pass catchers let him, and subsequently the rest of the team, down. Now, 1 year earlier, it was the Chiefs who were on the other side, winning Super Bowl 54 against the San Francisco 49ers, and Jimmy Garoppolo ends up catching a lot, if not all, of the blame for the loss, primarily because of the overthrow he had in crunch time when Kansas City dared him to go deep, and it looked like he had Emmanuel Sanders for a surefire lockdown. We've also heard people roast Richard Sherman for getting beat by Sammy Watkins on a big play late in the fourth quarter, and Kyle Shanahan sure does take a lot of flack for giving up another fourth quarter lead in the big game. But one Niner who seemed to escape any sort of criticism is Fred Warner, who made the terrible decision to tell his safety Jimmy Ward, "Hey Jimmy, stay in the middle of the field no matter what."
Hey Jimmy, stay in the middle of the field no matter what.
Only to have Tyreek Hill blow past him on a corner route shortly after. This 44-yard bomb, which, might I mention, Hill caught in that huge pocket down the sideline after Warner told Ward to stay put in the middle of the field, not only converted a huge 3rd and 15 with the Chiefs down 10 halfway through the fourth quarter, but it also set up their next score in a big way. So, before we go and pile on Garoppolo, Sherman, and Shanahan, maybe we should point the finger at Warner for allowing a conversion like that with the Chiefs on the ropes. It is an oft-overlooked facet of almost every NFL game. Defensive awareness, that is. It is absolutely pivotal that everyone who's on the field know exactly what they are supposed to be doing in every last situation. That does, however, require that you also have the right players on the field to execute those strategies, which apparently the Patriots did not during their 2018 Super Bowl slugfest with the Philadelphia Eagles. That's because Bill Belichick decided decided to demote Malcolm Butler, New England's former Super Bowl hero, limiting him to just one special team snap throughout the entire game. I suppose even the best coaches in the league are not infallible, but nonetheless, this was an extremely puzzling decision. And to me, looks like a case of Belichick getting a little bit cute with it and trying to do too much.
Gronk, why didn't Malcolm Butler play in the Super Bowl against the Eagles?
You know, everyone asked me this. My friends asked me this. Whoever asked me this, I actually know less info than you guys.
Especially considering that Butler literally led the team in defensive snaps during the regular season. Now, there are no guarantees that Butler would have saved New England from the clutches of defeat, but considering they surrendered a 41-point thrashing from Nick Foles and the rest of that Eagles offense, it's hard to believe that the Pats couldn't have benefited from having Butler out there.
Why didn't Malcolm play on defense and offense?
Yeah, again, we were just trying to run some packages that we had, for the game plan, and just, those guys that were out there for all the situations that we needed them for.
Matt,
so however it kind of, it turned out that way, and with the game, the kind of the way it went, and some of the situations that came up, that was really, that's just kind of the way it went.
I guess when you're Bill Belichick and you're really leading the charge in so many big games, the reality is that some of your decisions are gonna come back to bite you. After all, there are a million moving pieces in a football game, let alone the Super Bowl. So I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that he dropped the ball a time or two.
And it's interesting that Rowe got the start instead of Malcolm Butler. Butler was very emotional on the sideline.
Not all of his miscues were quite as glaring as the Butler situation, however. But there are certainly a couple of other questionable decisions that he's made, which deserve a lot more of the blame for their role in New England's Super Bowl losses over the years. Like his choice to dare Mario Manningham to beat them back in the closing minutes of Super Bowl 46. It was an insane throw and catch by Eli Manning and Manningham, yes, but Bill deserves some blame here. Belichick told his defense these exact words.
This is still a Cruz and Knicks game. Those are still the guys. Make them go to Manningham. He caught it.
It turns out that was a bit of a miscalculation, as Manningham's heroics played a massive role in helping the Giants back from that 17-15 deficit. Everyone was so quick to either blame the Patriots O-line or blame Brady's receivers for not catching balls, like his wife Giselle did after the game. But maybe, just maybe, if Belichick had implemented a different strategy, then New England could have avenged that giant loss from a few years prior. The Patriots' offensive line, one player in particular, does however deserve way more blame than he got for the aforementioned giant loss that New England suffered in 08 at Super Bowl 42. Now, this is not to take away from all that Logan Mankins accomplished for New England. After all, he was a 6-time All-Pro selection for them. And he was a rock on a line that did have a fair amount of turnovers during his decade-plus tenure with the team. But the reality is that the guard, who may very well find himself in Canton one day, dropped the ball during Super Bowl 42. Mankins got beat for the first 3 sacks, including the one just before the half that turned into a strip sack when the Pats were on the New York 45-yard line. He was the guy New England was supposed to rely on, and him getting beat, particularly on some crucial plays, was clearly not the recipe for success. Now, this was eerily similar to what played out during Super Bowl 50 with Mike Remmers. Everyone remembers Cam Newton's blunders, particularly his business decision at the end of the game, but what is often overlooked was Carolina's O-line, Remmers in particular getting beaten repeatedly. Remmers' performance, or lack thereof, stood out because multiple times his missteps resulted in impact plays for Denver. He got beaten cleanly for a fumble that was recovered for a touchdown in the first quarter. And again, he was beaten by Von Miller on a strip sack that resulted in the aforementioned business decision. He's just lucky that Cam was such a lightning rod that he shouldered damn near all the blame. Moving on from the woulda, coulda, shouldas of the offensive line, we have seen a few other culprits skate by over the years, like Seahawks offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell, who coincidentally had his blunder against another one of those great New England Patriots teams. It came on a play that no one forget, when Seattle boldly decided to throw the ball rather than run it from a 1-yard line with Marshawn Lynch at their disposal. And while Wilson and Pete Carroll, the team's head coach, took most of the blame from the media, Bevell, for some reason, didn't catch much flack, which I, for one, do not understand. I mean, he was the offensive coordinator, after all. Not to mention the fact that he basically threw his wide receiver, Ricardo Lockett, under the bus afterwards, suggesting that he could have been stronger to the ball. Sounds like someone has a guilty conscience to me. On the subject of Seattle pass catchers, Jeremy Stevens, who played tight end for the Seahawks from 2002 to 2006, should have caught some more flack for the role he played in a Seattle loss during Super Bowl 40. Because while he did have the honor of catching the first ever Super Bowl touchdown in franchise history during that game, also had 3 key drops that all came at pivotal moments in the 21-10 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And apparently, even Stevens himself knew it, saying after the game, "I can't look at anybody but myself. I can't remember the last time I played this poorly." And what made the whole situation even more contentious was his pseudo-guarantee before the game, when he declared it would be a sad day when Jerome Bettis leaves his Detroit homecoming without that trophy in his final game. Tough luck to be talking trash and then literally drop the ball when the lights got too bright. But I guess that's what happens when the pressure is turned all the way up during these big games. We saw it happen to Antrell Roll during an admittedly somewhat freakish play when his Arizona Cardinals were matched up against the Steelers a couple years later at Super Bowl 43. And to make matters worse for Roll, he wasn't even on the field when he blew the game for his team.
Larry makes one of the all-time Super Bowl plays if Antrell Roll's not standing in the white.
Roll was helplessly watching from the sideline, not realizing that he was dangerously close to the field of play.
Was there ever any thought for you to not go after him?
No. I always chase. I knew I could catch James Harrison.
And for some reason, no one ever seems to talk about this pivotal play, which is kind of crazy considering the final score was 27-23.
If they had gotten back, Larry Fitzgerald might have saved that game.
And if Antrell Roll wouldn't get in my way, I might have a ring.
All right, last but not least, we're talking about former Bills head coach Marv Levi, who clearly did not have his team situationally prepared for the end of that game. Buffalo had the ball with 1 timeout and 2 minutes and 16 seconds left in Super Bowl 25. And still, not once did they get out of bounds during that ill-fated last drive. This played into New York's strategy, as the Giants' pass rush was hardly applying pressure, instead letting Jim Kelly sit there, daring him to continually check the ball down underneath. Needless to say, their utter lack of urgency made Norwood's infamous 48-yard attempt way harder than it had to be. But who do you think deserves more blame than they get for their team's Super Bowl loss? Join us in the comments section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.